Hi there, friends, and welcome to episode 1,000,001 of Not Ready to Grow Up, part of the Versus Player podcast family. Jono, can you believe that we got to episode 1,000,001 already?
Yeah. One whole episode later. It's fantastic.
Well, we are your regular hosts. I'm Joe.
I'm Jono.
On each episode, us two best mates who are on either side of 40 are going to invite you in on one of the million conversations we have about the nerdy things we are passionate about. In this episode, Jono, today we are going to talk about one of our absolute favorites, the beloved Lego Minifigure.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this has been a shared passion of ours for as long as our friendship has been.
Yeah, yeah.
Jono, take us to school. Tell us a little bit about the Lego Minifigure. Where did it start? What's it all about?
Okay, well, let's talk, because I've got some questions for you and everyone listening at home as well, to see who maybe already knows some of this stuff. So, do you know what year the first minifigure appeared?
I'm going to say before I was born.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
In fact, just before I was born. The precursor to the minifigure was released in 1975.
Yep.
And actually, to Joe's delight, I've got one here in the studio.
Right in front of us.
He had...
It's in my hands.
No separate arms, no separate legs. They did connect through a waist and a piece, and really worth looking up online to see what it is. In fact, Wikipedia, you'll see some pictures there.
And it'll be up on the YouTube. If you're listening to or watching this on YouTube, there'll be a picture of it up on your screen right now.
There you go.
Is this a postman or a policeman, Jono? What do you think he's supposed to be?
See, back then, those hats worked for street cleaners, for sanitation workers, for policemen, for postmen. So it worked for pretty much anything. There were also like cowboys' hats and pigtails with the three sort of main hats and hair pieces back then. But then a couple of years later, 1978, so just after I was born, and
just before
you, they released the first modern minifigure, which is the way we really know them now.
With movable arms.
Yep, with the movable arms, the movable legs.
Yep.
And that expression that we all know and love. If you've seen the Lego movie, you'll remember it quite clearly. But also, it was around for... It wasn't until... Do you know what year they decided to actually change the minifigure expression?
No idea. Well, I'm going to guess. I'm going to say 90s.
Oh, you're so close. It was 1989.
Okay.
Do you know what line caused this change?
Star Wars?
No, this is before Star Wars. Star Wars was a few years later.
Oh, Star Wars was when they changed the color, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Yeah.
Space?
No, you'd think space, but no.
What was the answer?
It was pirates.
Pirates. Makes sense, yes, of course, because they've got to have an eye patch.
Yeah,
you can't have a pirate without having an eye patch.
And beards and
stubble.
Swarthy looks.
I remember the stubble, yes. I had
Yeah.
some pirates when I was young.
And this is it. So the classic look no longer... Well, it was still applicable and was still used throughout most of the other lines, but pirates were the first ones to change that.
Yeah.
It wasn't until 2003 that we got our first natural skin tones, which wasn't the first Star Wars sets, but it was later on in them. In fact... one of the first people to get that was Lando Calrissian.
Oh, very cool.
So we got, natural brown skin tones. It was lovely. So, and this has continued on. In fact, at 2006, Lego reported producing reportedly about 4 billion minifigures at that point.
That's a lot of minifigures.
I think we're almost at the point where minifigures definitely outweigh the population of humans on the planet.
That's very cool.
So here's the big one. We talked really briefly about my first minifigure, and that was actually one of the precursor minifigures. Now, I don't have a strong memory of it because it was obviously given to me in the first couple of years of my life. But do you have a fond memory of your first Lego?
My first memory of Lego was when I was it was late 80s, early 90s. It would have been about that time. We had 2 crates of Lego that we used to have. We had a spare room in the house. I used to call it the toy room. My parents would never have let us really call it that, but that's what it was in my eyes.
Well, we had a room called the toy room too.
Yeah.
Parents definitely called it that.
Well, that's what I'd like to use it for, but I always had to pack it away at the end of each play.
Yeah,
so it didn't,
same.
Unless it was school holidays or whatnot, I wasn't allowed to keep it out. But we had heaps of base plates. I reckon we would have had about 20 base plates. So it took up a big space on the floor.
Okay.
We had the space
that
ones with the kind of rocks, the raised rocks on the sides.
I didn't know that.
It was very cool.
Oh, I still want one of those.
And I remember having some pirate guys as well.
Yeah.
There was a little guy with a little peg leg as well.
Yes. Good old red beard. I had him too.
We
actually still do.
When I was in my teens, we got rid of all of the Lego.
That's why I can't steal your base plate. Not that you give it to me anyway.
It was a good thing on my parents. Someone in the family, there was a tragedy in their family with the kids, and
nice.
they handed all the Lego over. But I've still got my little Lego monkey
Yes.
from one of the old pirate sets. And
Yep.
I've still got a post box with the letter. I always liked the post box. It sat next to my computer for years and years and years until I got the current house. But yeah, I remember making the sets in the cities, but playing with the guys. We had a little Lego bike that I used to love, with the kind of rubber wheels that you could actually take the rubber off. Back in the day.
You were one of those people.
I was. I really was. And very much like the cliched with the Lego spacemen with the cracked helmets. That's kind of...
I think if we all had a classic spaceman, everyone's had at least one cracked helmet.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, like I spoke about in our introductory episode about my love of Star Wars, I didn't start collecting Lego Star Wars until I was an adult.
Yeah.
So like I kind of stayed away from that till really episode 1 came out. It was kind of the start of my Star Wars collecting. Yeah, Lego Star Wars
so here's the big question then. So you obviously went through a dark ages, and you just described that. So that would have been what, the early 2000s?
Yeah, early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s.
Through to when was episode 1 again?
Wasn't it 2000 and something? Was it 2000?
Oh, so yours was a really short.
It wasn't that long. It was
ages.
high school. It was high school. It kind of went to the wayside.
Yeah,
because I was collecting Star Wars figures then.
Yeah, okay.
Was more the thing.
Because in Lego, so there's a lot of acronyms around Lego, especially when it comes to the adult community. But there's a thing called, let's see if I can remember, the AFOLs, which are the adult fans of Lego.
Yep.
And one of the most common things that are talked about on forums, and it's funny because I'm not a big forums follower. I follow things that are interesting to me, but I've always liked that concept of there was a dark ages that we all went through where you stopped collecting those things that were considered childhood and then you came back to them. And mine for Lego was a lot longer than yours, I think. So mine ended, I pretty much stopped really getting Lego it would have been the early 90s.
Yep.
Because for me, that's, sort of year 8, year 9.
Yep.
And then
Phantom Menace was 99. It was the year I graduated school. Now I remember that.
It was 99, yeah. So then, I had a really long time before I got out of my dark ages. I remember, I think I might have picked up 1 or 2 sets, and there's nothing that's coming to mind right now, but I know when I was working at JB Hi-Fi, so around 2006, 7, 8, they released Indiana Jones Lego sets.
Oh, very nice.
And I got myself the one with Indy, his father from Last Crusade, on the bike escaping the Germans.
I've got a Lego Indy figure. Bought that a few years back. I
remember you getting that, yeah. So I love that, and I got that, but that didn't kick off the end of my dark ages. It wasn't until my fiance, who was my girlfriend at the time, decided for my birthday that year when I was working at Target in their toy department. So I have a long history of toy departments. We'll talk about it more in the future. But she bought me a Lego fire station because she knew I always wanted one.
I love this. So like we've said, 2 best mates here. I love that it's all her fault. I can just throw that in her face every time I speak to her from now on. Whenever she complains, it's all on her. It's all on her.
This is the best thing. She kept on buying me. She bought me a tub of it was a file tub for filing paperwork, and said, okay, when you fill this, that's the end of your Lego for the time being.
Yeah, right.
3 tubs later and numerous other storage containers, it's well past it. But what I love the most is in the last couple of years, thanks to Harry Potter Lego, and something that still confuses the hell out of me, but the Lego Central Perk set of Friends, the TV show, not Lego Friends, because that's confusing in itself. And look it up if you don't know what I'm talking about. There'll be pictures. But she started collecting Lego in a big way, so it's hilarious. Now we're finding spots for her Lego.
Well, for me, my big renaissance into Lego has been the fact that my kids are into it. So when my son was, it's a very nice excuse, it's a very handy excuse, I must say. And I'm sure there's dads out there, mums and dads out there listening who are like, "Yep, fair enough. Like it's the way to do it." But when my son was really young, we got him a couple of Duplo sets, and then it wasn't long when I said to my wife, I'm like, I really think, because they have the what are those?
The 4+ juniors type sets.
The junior
which
sets.
They keep renaming them every so often. So at the moment they're called 4+.
But there was an Iron Man junior set which came with a really nice Iron Man minifigure.
Remember that?
And I was like, I think he'd love to play with that, and I knew he would. And we bought him that.
That was basically with Loki and Iron Man in a car. Yeah.
And he was Iron Man driving a car for some reason, even though he can fly around. But it's
he's
Lego.
A Playboy. He's allowed to have a car.
But it's an Iron Man car. But whatever.
Yeah,
it was
he
cool.
Just took the Audi and adjusted it.
He loved it. Like, he was, playing, took things apart, played with all that. But it was the minifigure that he just played with the most.
Do you still have the Iron Man figure?
Still got it.
Yeah.
I've got a few other variants with the kind of removable mask as they have now, which is
there's one sitting here, in fact, from Endgame right there.
It's awesome, and you can click that mask up.
Yep.
And there's Tony underneath with his blue face, which is very cool, with his like kind of electronic face. But yeah, that kind of started the kind of, like I said, the renaissance of the Lego collecting. And then it is the collectible minifigure series now that I don't know how many of them I bought over the years.
Yeah, so many. Well, actually, our greatest collection together was, instead of going through all the bags and trying to find the figures we wanted, when the Harry Potter series was released, I knew that was an easy sell on M, because she loves Harry Potter. And
your fiancée, yes.
Exactly, and you were more than thrilled to do this. We bought an entire box of minifigures just so we could get an entire set each.
Yeah, and today, when those first came out, there was identifiable ways on some of the packets to see which figure was inside, like little dots.
So I have a story for this one.
Go for it.
So this is, again, when I was working at Target. So not long after that fire station, they released the first series of collectible minifigures. So we're talking about 2000 and... I'd have to look it up again, but I think it's 2010. And yeah, so it was the first time they'd released blind packed figures for Lego. Such a smart idea.
Yeah.
And if you look at the toy aisles these days, blind packed figures are huge, and even the Lego minifigures are still big. Not as big as they were back then, but still big. And it was 16 characters of figures that you'd never seen put into a set because they didn't make sense in a set. Or, funnily enough, there's some history behind it. There are some figures in those first maybe 5 or 10 collectible minifigure series that were figures that were originally destined for a particular series that got cancelled and ended up in that series.
I didn't know that.
But yeah, I remember working at Target in the toy department and having my manager and a couple of the other managers at the time wanting a full set and actually having me sit out the back on work time and sort out complete sets out of the boxes that we had.
That's very cool.
Hilarious. So that's, I think, the only series that I got besides Harry Potter where I've gotten the entire series.
Yeah, but today to identify what's inside those little blind packs is the feeling method. And you are very good at it. There are great websites out there that kind of give you the current, just to kind of date when this is, when we're recording this podcast.
Early 2020?
Yeah, the Batman series 2 or 3 are we up to with Batman minifigures now?
No, this is the first DC.
Oh, series. DC, sorry, it's not just Batman.
Yeah.
I'm saying Batman because I've only wanted the Batman and Batmite.
This is true. There were 2 Batman sets that were tied to the movie.
The movie, that's right, yes.
And then this is the first DC.
Just DC.
One.
And it's really cool. It's got some nice... I like the Superman in there as well. Got a very nice...
I got the Green Lantern.
Yep, you got the Green Lantern as well. But yeah, it's kind of like the feel method now for those. And I guess...
Well, to be honest with you, even that first series, there were little dots that were printed and people quickly tagged onto if you looked at the dots, you could figure out what they were. Actually, they weren't printed, they were pressed in. But those sets that I put aside, I used the fill method all the way through.
Yeah. And I guess now with like Lego minifigures, like when I buy a big set or any sort of set, particularly like the smaller Star Wars ranges, like one of the recent ones of the Mandalorian Battle Pack.
Yeah,
I picked that up. This is
Have you made that one yet?
I haven't yet. But we're an Australian podcast here. We're in Australia,
in Sydney.
In Sydney, so this is going to be Australian dollars. So I'm not sure if that means anything to anyone listening in other parts of the world. But
it means shock and horror most of the time. But sometimes we outdo the US.
We do. But anyway, the Mandalorian Battle Pack retails for about $20. You got
$22.99.
$22, yeah, but I picked it up for, what was it, 18, I think it was.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that, yeah.
So it works out to be, 4 minifigures in there, $5 a piece. That's kind of my general view of what a minifigure's worth. Yeah. But something like a Mandalorian, like, the decals, the extra little cape, and the kind of the really nice helmet, and the fact that all 4 of them are different, I'd look at that and say, okay, I'd happily pay more for each figure.
Yeah.
That's kind of that's come into my Lego purchasing nowadays. Like when I go and buy something, if I think, all right, well, I'm getting 4 minifigures, a little vehicle, and a gun or something for less than $5 a minifigure, plus the extra stuff. Basically, it's free Lego. And then my wife doesn't always see it that way as well. I'm more convincing myself when I, go into my wallet to pay for it. But it's interesting. Like some of we looked at that. You were talking about the Lego Central Perk. Is that what it's called?
Central Perk, yeah.
Set, and it's what? It was an $80-something set.
Yeah, $90 set.
And it comes with 6.
It's all the friends.
Unique.
All the unique characters of Friends. So, Joey, Monica, Rachel, Ross, Chandler, Phoebe, and Gunther.
Gunther, the guy who works in the place.
The Central Perk, yeah.
That's really cool. That's good value for, only place you can get those figures. Like you go on eBay and minifigures.
Oh, ridiculous depending on how rare they are.
Goodness me. Yeah. Like it's a hot commodity.
Actually, so which makes a really good question. What's your favourite minifigure? Do you have a favourite? Because it's hard.
It is. Like I love the new R2-D2 with the dirt kind of pattern on it.
This is going to be a habit. A pattern, people. Just be prepared to listen about R2 on a regular basis. But the one with the dirt pattern.
I really like that.
Is that from the Yoda's Hut set?
Yeah. Yoda's Hut. This is terrible, but one of my absolute favourite minifigures I have is not a legit Lego minifigure. It is a bootleg Stan Lee minifigure that I picked up for a few years back at a convention. I've got to say, I love the variations of the Stormtroopers, the kind of all of them, the clone troopers, the Stormtroopers.
Yeah, they're cool.
Any kind of range on that. I guess that's kind of, generally speaking, my favourite ones. The ones that I've got, like, at home on display, the ones that I like the most, I've got a lifeguard, which I think is really cool. Lego lifeguard.
I remember when we got that.
Yourself, John? I'm going to think a little bit more. What about you? What comes to mind with some of your favourites?
I really struggle because sometimes you're right. The set's being bought purely because the minifigure included in it makes a big deal. So, like from a passion point of view, all my Avengers minifigures are some of my favourites. Even if they aren't always the best minifigures out there, collectively they're fantastic, and especially filling out my Hall of Armor with Iron Man Lego minifigures is really cool. But then on a more personal note, some of my classic spacemen and firemen, because I wanted to be a firefighter as a kid, through to currently when we went to Europe last year, on a year before, me and Emma, we brought some special minifigures from there. And I know I brought you back one and a couple of other friends, but Lester from the Leicester Square Lego store is one of my favorites because he's such a classic minifigure. While I've also bought things like the Lego Star Wars Advent Calendar from 2 years ago because I wanted General Merrick from Rogue One. Yeah. And he was a really nice looking minifigure as well. So I really struggle to have a favorite. I like to think of all of them as my children. Em would probably take some offense to that. When we have children, she's going to say you're going to have to choose.
Well, and speaking of the minifigure, like I've got a son and I've got 2 younger girls as well. We've got them some Lego. No, definitely not. But we've got some of the Lego Friends range as well, and like they all love them. They all love those. Like, and the fact that I don't like that they don't work in Lego sets, like they don't sit in the car properly or that sort of thing. I wish they're a bit more compatible in that way. I understand why they made those minifigures. You got to try and
I think they're very clever design. But there were limitations and the benefits to them, and a lot of Lego collectors find them not as appealing. I find in the right sets, I have no problem.
Yeah, and I think, like, personally, I like the Lego Friends Elves range is amazing. I think that's really cool. Some of the, treehouse design sorts of things there are phenomenal really and work well with your normal minifigures anyway. Yeah. But yeah, like my kids, they pull them all apart. They're all kind of all over. I've got a base plate full of minifigures, like in a room at home that the kids know. Don't touch those ones. Yeah. They stay together. One of my favorites is a cleaning guy. I think he came in one of the minifigures range.
I love him as well.
With a little mop. Yeah, the janitor. He was really cool. But most others, like there's hair pieces and leg pieces, and they even change in the hands. And I'm not a big fan of changing hands because
drives me
always
nuts.
Worry, like particularly when we were younger. Like I remember there was always a few minifigure pieces where minifigure guys where the hand just wouldn't go in because you snapped it.
Yeah.
But like, what a toy. These toys are going to last.
Yeah, exactly.
Forever. Like, got them for my kids.
Yeah.
I said to my son, I made a joke with him. The day that you three have grown up and are over Lego is a day that it all becomes mine and you never get it back again. But it is, and it's an investment, and it's fun, and it's just so fun to play with, and it's really cool. But
I agree entirely. I think on that note, this is a good time as any to wrap up this episode. Don't think it's the last time we'll be talking about Lego.
If you found this on a podcast app and you want to see what we are talking about, you can check us out on YouTube, or vice versa. Listen to us on most major podcast services, all under Not Ready to Grow Up or NRGUP. And if video games are your thing, definitely check out Versus Player Podcast, where Jono, our other best mate Jase, and I talk all things video game. And we're in our second season now, Jono.
We are. Second big season after that massive first season.
And after a massive break as well. So we are back there too. If you have a topic or a favourite collectible memory you want to share with us, email us at NRGUP, that's NRGUP, @versusplayer.com. We hope you join us next episode, where we will chat about some of our favourite Star Wars figures from the original Kenner line. I'm very excited about this.
Definitely.
Thanks for listening, and until next time, stay young at heart.